Hello and welcome to the show, Muz Murray. Really delighted to have you on the show. We were hoping to catch up when I was in the Algarve recently, but there was just too much going on. So I'm totally delighted to connect with you on the show today. And I have to congratulate you for coming up with the most original podcast title that we've had so far. I'm going to have to read it. So how the mind impregnated the Psyche-Sphere of the planet. Absolutely amazing. So I just had a little look on your website, and I'm sure we could just spend a whole hour just talking about your life history, because you've had such a varied career, from being a stuntman to hanging out with the surrealist painters and being a surrealist artist, hanging out with Salvador Dali and Marcel Duchamp, and being an elephant trainer, and there was all kinds of amazing kind of like, it feels like you've had about 10 lives in one there.
That's it, yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure we could spend the whole time just talking about that. But if you want to maybe just highlight a few key points and how you came onto the path of the heart, the path of self-realization.
The 4th of November, in the Portugal news, I have a whole page of explaining my mystical experience that changed my life. Right, so I went to art college when I was in my teens in England, in Coventry, and then I became quite known as a surrealist painter, which is why my painter guru, Salvador Dali, I especially went to the Costa Brava to live close to him so I could get to know him. And he used to let me sit in his studio and watch him paint.
How amazing.
Yes, and drink his whiskey.
This was before you had before the awakening and after the awakening moment?
Yeah, this was long before. Then I went back to the UK. I worked at the BBC for a time as a scenic artist, doing Z cars and Citizen James and people like that, and the ballet. And then I set off hitchhiking all around Spain, and I ran out of money in Gibraltar, so I was eating grass, and I got back to Madrid and managed to get myself a job working in films on King of Kings and El Cid, both as a designer artist and a stuntman in the films, falling off horses and stuff like that. Then a lot of things in between, but then to Tel Aviv, where I worked in the theatre and became a zookeeper, and then ended up singing in a nightclub.
Oh my goodness.
Another nightclub owner offered me more money to go and work in his club. And then the first club owner was so annoyed that he ratted to the authorities that I'd overstayed my permit.
Oh gosh.
So I had to flee out of Israel as fast as I could. So I took a ship to Cyprus in the Mediterranean. But unfortunately, I had my bag stolen with all my money, and all I had was £7.50 in my pocket. And there I was, stuck on an island with only £7.50, and I wanted to go to India, and there was no chance of that.
My goodness.
And so one evening, at a crossroads in my life, not knowing what to do, where to go, I was sitting on a bollard on the quayside in Limassol, the port of Limassol, and I had this strange feeling as if a ghostly hand was creeping up the back of my neck and laying a kind of etheric brain on top of mine. Well, I'd never heard of the Kundalini at that time. But
Yes.
this is obviously what it was. And my consciousness appeared to expand out into space, across the ocean, across the land.
Wow.
And I found myself everywhere in the universe at the same time. And I was given revelation after revelation of how everything operated and how the whole of visible existence was merely made of consciousness. And that completely blew my mind. And from then on, I had a totally different aspect of what existence was about. And the revelations, the filtering into my cells, which I knew wherever my body was at that time, the cells were recording everything like a camera film. And over the years, that information, that knowledge, before that, everything I'd learned in college or anywhere else was only information.
Yes.
But this was knowledge with a capital K, as they say in Vedanta terms. And that knowledge has been filtering out through my conscious mind for many, many years, knowing things years beyond even quantum scientists, only 50 years later started to think that the universe is made of consciousness.
Yes.
So that's just one or two of the empirical knowledge that was given to me in that instance. That experience just changed the whole way of my thinking, the whole course of my life. From then on, I was on the spiritual path without having the slightest idea what the spiritual path was, except for that. Before, I had no interest. I thought things like this were just the phantasms of old men in their dotage. And so with the £7.50 that I had, the only place I could get was a boat to Egypt. And I thought, well, the only place I'm likely to get some work is in Kenya, which is an English colony. But that was 3,000 miles down Africa. And how I expected to do that, I don't know. But I went and I put myself in a little pension in Cairo, not knowing how to pay for it. And some days later, I wangled myself a job as art director for Cairo Television.
Oh, wow.
And while I was there, I scoured the British Council library for every spiritual book I could find. I read the Bible, I read the Zend-Avesta, I read even the Mormon Bible, and everything. And I suddenly found a book called Cosmic Consciousness by Dr. Maurice Buck, who was a friend of Walt Whitman, the poet, and he was a psychiatrist in a mental institution in Canada. And he'd written in this book all the people he found way back in history who had had this experience and how it changed their lives and it changed the lives of people around them. So finally, my intellect was satisfied, which was totally bypassed by the whole experience.
Yes.
The intellect has no capacity for spiritual understanding.
Yes.
It can only chew on things after something's happened.
It's beyond words, isn't it? You
Yes.
know, those kind of experiences. I mean, that's an absolutely incredible incredible story, and I'm interested to understand how you move forward after that, because my understanding is that we can all have kind of these spiritual moments, but then actually sustaining that, you know, is enlightenment. So obviously you'd had these realizations, you'd had some cellular memory change that had recorded that, so you had that ability to connect in again. But did you find yourself dipping in and out for quite some time?
Yes, yes, I was not of this world, and I was seeing with like eyes like crystals, like it was the morning of the world, and I could see into people's soul quality, just the radiation. I just knew what their level of being was, and during the months that followed, my body started to reject blood foods, meat, fish, eggs. I stopped smoking. I threw my pipe and cigars into the River Nile. Eventually, I gave up alcohol, and I hitchhiked all the way down Africa, very dangerously, surviving knife attacks, being shot at by Bedouins, by an earthquake, locusts, swarms, you name it.
Did you say poison darts as well?
Yes, poison darts. I was in a truck. I'd hitchhiked a truck going through the jungle for miles and miles, and suddenly this tall native with a spear stepped out in front of the truck, and the truck hit him, and he went splat across the windscreen, blood right over, and the driver just put his foot down and kept going. And I said, we just run over somebody. He said, wait. And we drove on another 40 miles or so, stopped at a trading post, and he said, come. And he took me round the truck. He said, see, there's poison darts stuck in the canvas of the truck. He said, we stop.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So you've had an incredible life.
Yeah, so I still wanted to find somebody who understood what had happened to me. But I couldn't tell anybody, even my best friend. I didn't want to profane the experience. And I was walking past a bookshop in Johannesburg, and there was this picture of Ramana Maharshi on a book, if you know.
Oh, yes.
And I stopped and I said, he knows. And I went in, I bought the book, and it was exactly an echo of my experience. And so I thought, my God, now I need to be in India to study meditation. And at that time, a Sikh master, Charan Singh, came from India to initiate people into meditation. Only people who had abstained from meat, fish, eggs, alcohol, and tobacco for at least 3 months. And I was one of the few initiated into Shabda Yoga, listening to the internal sound current. And I had to meditate from 1 o'clock in the morning till 2:30 every night, which ruined my days when I was working in the theatre, acting and designing shows.
So that became your path very much, the working with the sounds, you know, how sounds can change consciousnness, and you became a mantra master.
Yes, that's when I went back to the UK. I wasn't interested in a career anymore, but I went back to the BBC to earn some money to go to India. But at this time, it was flower power. And so I decided to create a magazine that gave some direction to lost youth and hippies who were destroyed by society and then destroyed by drugs and were completely lost. And so I started Gandalf's Garden Community in London and invited gurus from all over the world in from every dimension, from every style of spiritual teaching. And there I encountered a yogi doctor who was a brain specialist and was a mantra yogi. And he chanted, and the effect of his chant on me, it was like he was playing cosmic billiards, and the balls hitting my body, and all my cells were vibrating. And I began to laugh and laugh, and they dragged me out and put me on the stairs, and I was laughing for 20 minutes, and I thought, there's really something going on here. So I invited him to my community, and he stayed for 6 months, and I learned all my basic mantra work with him.
How wonderful.
When I went off to India for 3 years, as a wandering monk with a begging bowl, loincloth and turban, and I studied with every kind of yoga, but worked more with mantra wherever I could find a good mantra teacher, and added to my repertoire until I was able to teach mantra to 3,000 people in the temples in South India.
How amazing. Did you ever connect with Deepak Chopra and his wife? I had the opportunity to learn from them about 20 years ago, and I found it incredibly powerful.
Yes, I did. I was on a program with Deepak Chopra in London, actually, later on. And I didn't actually meet him in India. I met Iyengar and Osho and all the big knobs,
Amazing.
all the fat cat gurus. So then I wrote a guide to the ashrams of India, which was popularly called the 5-Star Guru Guide.
Because you've written many books, haven't you? Are there any that you'd like to speak about that kind of come in with this topic of no mind?
Yes, well, my book, Sharing the Quest, is leading people towards the state of Advaita, which is the highest peak of spiritual teaching. Some people think they are very advanced, and yet they've never heard of Advaita, which is the intuitive experience of the sages of the reality of the universe and how it is, which coincides with my experience. And I followed through then with You Are the Light, Secrets of the Sages Made Simple. And there I have outlined everything that any spiritual seeker needs to know. And several reviewers have said, this is the only spiritual book I will ever need.
Oh, really?
So that's praise.
Well, amazing.
Indeed.
I'll definitely have to take a look at that. So I'm interested to explore this link between sound, consciousness, and the breath. Is there anything that you'd like to share around the power of sound and the power of the breath and how this can really shift our consciousness?
Well, breathing techniques are all to a degree, but they only temporarily ease the mind and keep it calm, but it doesn't work for a continuation in life. It's the same as meditation. People may meditate for 20 minutes, for 10 hours, yet they come out of the meditation with the same mindset that they went in, and the same ideas and the same thoughts. There's a nice Indian story of a guru who says to his disciple, I am going to do some meditation. Just make me some tea while you're waiting. So the disciple goes off and makes the tea. The guru goes into a deep, deep meditation, and he doesn't come out of it that day, nor the next day, nor the next week, nor the next month. And 20 years go by, and the old disciple dies.
Oh.
And eventually the guru wakes up and says, where's my tea? So I incorporated the breathing techniques with the mantra, and that's what makes the difference, because in Vedic chant there is no accent on the breathing, so they're just chanting in a monotone all the time. Urdvamu lamadaksa kamashvatam prayabhyam chandam siyachipanani yastam vedam, and you go off to sleep. So I discovered the old tantric dynamic form of mantra, which was using the breath to stimulate the Kundalini energy, and in between every breath of a chant, there's an out breath and an in breath. For example, on a simple level, the Om Namah Shivaya mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. And that, when the mantra speeds up, then that affects like a pump,
right,
and sends the energy rising. And within half an hour or 1 hour of this kind of tantric mantra chant work, everybody is mindless. They are in a state approximating samadhi. And in fact, really, it is a temporary samadhi, because samadhi is a state when there is no movement of consciousness. As Patanjali says, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Mantra yoga is the cessation of movements of the fluctuations of mind. And this kind of process shows that there is actually no such thing as mind. There is only a certain thought flow which comes and goes, but which doesn't go sufficiently for most people. They're just rabbiting and rabbiting away. Now, I've done this mind-wiping work for so many years that often it's very difficult for me to even think something. So if you throw a surprise question at me, I'd have to wait and pull it out of the ether from somewhere.
That's usually the best way, isn't it?
Yes, but then there's big spaces in between.
But that's also nice, because it's natural, and you know, it allows that people to process as well. I'd love to hear more about this pump, this activation of the pump that you spoke about, because I've done a lot of work with Master Mantak Chia, which works with the microcosmic orbit. So it's working with that rising of the energy up the spine, but also down the front. And he talks a lot about the sacral pump. Is that what you're working with, the sacral pump?
Well, it would be, yes. I don't call it that, but it pushes the energy from. Actually, it's working from Anahata chakra, sending the energy down to the coccyx and then pushing it up the spinal Ida and Pingala thread. And then that that helps to wipe out the brain far quickly than any other process that I found. So that's what I found. It has been very beneficial for Westerners who are very mind-bound. And going back to the title of this
yes, let's talk about that.
Video, when the mind, or the so-called mind, is evaporated, then the quality of being is like a radiator that radiates out into the Psyche-Sphere of the planet. Ramana Maharshi says when the I, the ego, the I is the ego, it's the opposite side of the same coin. When that diminishes and disappears, then what is the space that is left is what you actually are. And that space is pure consciousness without anything affecting it. And when you are in that space, you radiate out into the world without even trying. There's many people saying, let's raise the consciousness of the planet and send all this energy. You don't need that. Once you are in that place, you are the energy of the universe manifesting.
Yes.
And
so do you shift into becoming the kind of creator, because through that connection with consciousness, it's kind of like a co-creation?
exactly. We are co-creators with whatever you conceive of as God or the omnipresence.
Yes.
And that is consciousness. There is nothing other than that consciousness. So that awareness that is behind consciousness is that which is creating everything. Just when you open your eyes in the morning, the world is created.
I'd love to ask you about how you see the nature of that consciousness. You know, I know it's difficult to put it into words, but if you had to put it into words, what would the components of that be?
It doesn't have any components.
It doesn't have, so you wouldn't kind of love wouldn't be, so it's empty for you, it's emptiness.
It's clarity.
Okay.
And a clarity doesn't have any components, it just is. The alternative, well, this condition is what the sages call the self with a capital S. Their alternative name for it is the awareness. So neither does the self nor the awareness have any component parts. They are it. And that is the whole essence of Advaita.
So it's kind of like that can't be named. It's whatever, whenever you try to point to it, that's not it.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone who's been, who has lived in that space is unable to express it in words. They are stuck. Neither Nisargadatta nor Ramana Maharshi nor who was it? The Guru in Calcutta, very famous 18th century. He always wept when he was asked to explain it.
Sure.
Because,
they will come to you later, I'm sure.
Yes, it's lurking just here somewhere.
So I'd love to ask you, one of the things that you spoke about earlier was this radiating, this energy of radiating when you shift your consciousness into this state. is that something you can talk about? Is there a certain quality that you're radiating? And is it coming from the heart energy field?
Yes, well, the heart is another word for the self. And when you're in that place, the radiation is coming from that. It's not Anahata chakra. It's closer to Hrit chakra, which is behind Anahata. And that is a kind of sun radiation out into the world. So I created, or I should say, I recreated a visualization called Surya Dhyana, which is focused radiation of the sun. And you visualize a sun in the center of your being. And on the in-breath, the sun swells. And on the out-breath, you push little light particles, I call lightrons, from the sun in every direction through your body. And then you draw them in on the in-breath, and the sun becomes larger. Then you breathe out again, and the particles pass out from your skin out into an egg-shaped field around you, and it's all sparkling with the quality of your soul being. And then you continue with that, and the sun gets larger until it evaporates you and just goes out into the whole of the cosmos and puts you into an amazing space. I've created a CD called Surya Dhyana exactly for people to practice this, and people are finding it really, really beneficial for them. They go right like that, and then they find people smiling at them in the street. I'm so often getting people saying good day to me in the street, and my friends are saying, do you know them? I said, oh, I've never seen them before. But they feel it.
Feel your energy. That's beautiful. Well, I know we talked about maybe doing something in the podcast, but it may well be that it's better to direct people to the CD. Is that something you'd like to give a little insight to, or is it better to direct people to the CD?
Yes, it would, because it's a whole about 45-minute process of learning the practice, and they get into a deep meditation. There's another guided meditation with it about becoming a candle and melting into the universe. So it's been very, very helpful. And people are very stressed. People are very stressed can use my Yoga Nidra CD. It's been a bestseller for 20 years now. And everybody says this is the best one that they've ever come across.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you want the phone off the hook. You want everything closed, because you don't want to come out of it. You'll have the best sleep you've ever had afterwards. One woman wrote to me and said, you might like to know that I've been to bed with you for the last 12 years.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. I'll definitely try that one as well. So thank you. Are there any last things you'd like to share, Muz, before we finish up today?
Now, you see, you've dropped me in it.
Just any last thoughts that are coming through from consciousness, really?
No, just try to focus on your heart center rather than in the mind space, because that is where everything comes from in the end. And all yoga is leading to this point. So you might as well start from that place. Put your head there in the center of your chest and think from there, talk from there, walk from there, and you will see what an amazing change it has on your life.
Thank you so much. This has been an absolutely incredible podcast. I feel really blessed and honoured to have had the opportunity to speak with you, Muz. And hopefully next time I'm down in the Algarve, we'll get to connect in person.
Absolutely. It'll be a pleasure. I hope I haven't dropped people into the deep end too much.
Oh, I like doing deep end. It's always good. I mean, this is New Earth podcast, so it's people that are looking to explore new ways of being in the world. So this is what this is all about. So it's been absolutely perfect. And thank you so much. And I understand YouTube have got some really new features, so I'm going to have to test it out. Apparently, if I say the word subscribe in my podcast, a sparkly button starts to come. No, sorry, if people hit it, a sparkly button comes up. So I'm interested to see if that happens or not. So I thought it was pretty funny, so I had to try it out.
What's it called? New Earth Podcast?
New Earth podcast. Yeah, I'll send you the details later, Muz. But apparently, if I say subscribe, so I'm trying it out again. If people hit the button, there's some kind of sparkly things that happen. It's a new YouTube feature I just found out about.
I've got about 50 or 60 of my satsangs on YouTube, if anybody wants to check that out.
Fabulous.
Too.
Well, we'll put all the details underneath the video so we can connect in. And I'm sure you'll share this on your channel as well.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Many blessings. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening today. Bye for now.